a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? Let's hope that my so there we go. Okay, I think we're getting it to where it needs to be. There we go. Yes, there's my issue. Hold on. Sometimes I get a little farther ahead of myself than I want to be. There we go. And welcome to another Julia Pop. Hopefully I'm not locking up too much and I have managed to shut down all of my extra stuff that I needed to shut down. So we will see. I am still working out the kinks on the microphone to make sure that I have not only a microphone that's working properly, but also that I have enough internet to make sure that I'm doing that. Yes, Clive, the song about nonlinear time. Thank you. I appreciate that. Crystal remembered this week. Hi, Crystal. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining. And let's see, I'm going to make sure that I have enough internet power here. So I might be kind of freezing, and I'm going to try not to freeze too much. Our topic, of course, is going to be Hot Topic. So as you can see, I have the old classic logo t-shirt. Funnily enough, I bought it from Hot Topic well after the the logo had changed. And so we will talk definitely about logos and how that's changed over the years, and a little bit, we'll have a little history of Hot Topic, but then we'll tell some of the stories that I have promised to tell. So let me take a look here at making sure that I am not going to run into any issues with internet. There we go. All right, here's hoping everything stays together today. All right, so again, like I said, welcome. Thank you guys for coming in. I know there will probably be other people joining a little bit later as we go, but I definitely wanted to welcome all of you. I'm kind of hoping that maybe some of the people that I worked with at Hot Topic, which was quite a few people, very good friends of mine still to this day. I invited as many of them as I could think uh, to invite. So, Mom, hi, how are you? Norma June says, fun, Hot Topic. So, yes, hopefully she remembers my 4 years working there as well. It was a very good time. And so, a couple of things just to let you know before we get started into the main topic. Somehow my candy vid is gone. It's the same reason that the coffee and tea video was gone. So, I will get that added back again. Like I said, unfortunately, it doesn't have all the commentary that I love and all of the likes and watches, but we'll go ahead and put it up so you can at least see the content that we've covered. And then, of course, if you stick with me through this half hour to 45 minutes, give or take, I will let you know what next week's title and theme is going to be. So, but feel free to chime in on the comments what you loved about Hot Topic, the era of Hot Topic that you love, the reason why you would go in there and what you would buy. Maybe the first thing you bought, if you can remember what that is. So we're definitely wanting to go into that, because one of the coolest things about when I was working there was how much I understood my whole life. Obviously, I do this entire page because I love pop culture, all kinds, music, movies, TV, cartoons, all of the different kind of stuff, you name it. I've always been a fan. And so when I had a chance to work at Hot Topic is all about pop culture. And so, of course, I was very interested in working there for those reasons. And so we'll get into a few things, some things you might know, some things you might not know, but we're going to have some fun with it. So first of all, I definitely want to get some of the nuts and bolts of retail in general. So Crystal will understand retail quite a bit. Those others of you that have worked retail in any format, whether it was Hot Topic or not, you understand some of these things I'm going to run down. So Crystal says she got her favorite pair of boots there. So yes, I have some boots that I'm going to be showing off too, because of course I didn't really get rid of all the Hot Topic stuff that I bought in that 4 year time span. I just kept using it. And that's part of what makes the Magic Room so magic, is because I have so much stuff from all the different things. When I worked at the record store, when I worked at the Hot Topic, and we might do a record store one just like this. So Crystal said that they were the ones that laced up the back. I have worn them too. So that was what's, that's one of the best things about best friends, especially when a lot of the different clothes that you wear are the same size. So you can borrow shoes and boots and clothes and dresses and all kinds of stuff. And so thank you, Bestie, for letting me borrow those. And of course, you're always welcome to borrow any of mine that you should happen to need. So first of all, like I said, Hot Topic, for as cool, funky, strange, whatever you thought of it as, it was still a retail store, and so we still had to care about numbers and making sure that we did sales. So all of the alphabet soup of letters that we have in the retail world. So KPI, key performance indicators. We had all of that stuff. And a point of sale. A point of sale is just a cash register, POS. So which it doesn't mean the POS that you think it means. It actually means point of sale. And then you had things, then your barcodes, of course, that you had called UPC codes. That's a universal product code. SKU, stock keeping unit, stands for S is what SKU is, and SKU is actually specific to Hot Topic. Now, if you ever worked at a Hot Topic, sometimes you had to key in the number because we would sell pins, and the pins were far too tiny for us to have a barcode on it, and so we would have to hand type it in. And so what's funny is that still to this day, some of the pins that I have still have the SKU code on the back of them. And so I've actually been in the process of getting all of my pins more organized, and they have been gathered up, and I don't have them to show off today, but I will try and maybe get a photograph of them and show you kind of how many different pins I have, lots of different sizes, the tiny ones all the way up to pretty good size pins. And so we do have quite a those. Now, one of my favorite alphabet soup 3-letter things was a little thing called POG, which stands for planogram, and that was our merchandising. And so whenever you walk into a Hot Topic or any retail store, you want it to be inviting. You want people to be interested in what you're trying to sell them. And so Hot Topic was oftentimes known to be kind of scary because it was darker. The walls were dark, and the music was metal usually, or really like heavy punk kind of shouting type music. And so some people were a little bit scared to go in there. We'll go into a little bit of that category as well. But what you wanted to do with planogram was make it inviting. Put something in the front window that everybody would want to come in and see. And so for a long time, we had lots of different TV, movies, all kinds of things that we would work with those companies. And so we'd, of course, do some cross branding, that kind of thing. And Crystal says, and skirts. Yes, I actually am going to do a parade of skirts very soon. Here off camera, I actually have stacked up every Hot Topic skirt I have. And if you think it's only 4 or 5, oh, just you wait. We will definitely get into the story of how I ended up getting so many skirts. And Crystal says, at least it didn't smell like Abercrombie. You are so right. I would just about, I've maybe been into an Abercrombie twice in my life, and I couldn't get too far past the front door because the cologne about gagged me out. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm very sensitive. I try to take as best care of my throat and my vocal cords as I possibly can, but I can't walk into an Abercrombie. I'm sorry, it can't be done. It's too much. There are a couple of other stores that would do the same thing, and I just wanted to gag, and it was horrible because you're just like, oh, it's in my, you felt like it was in your mouth. It was really nasty. Not a fan. And Crystal, of course, is laughing along with me. So luckily we didn't have to do that at Hot Topic. Although somebody, when I was doing my research, did mention that people thought that Hot Topic smelled like the inside of a Halloween mask, which only makes sense because a lot of times they sold Halloween masks. And we'll talk about how the holidays were important for Hot Topic as well. Now, you'll also notice, I mean, it is cold. I hope wherever you are, you're warm and cozy as possible. So, of course, I had to wear my sweater. And one of my, actually, this is actually a more recent purchase, but you might recognize this fellow right here. And I think you might recognize that I've got the Black Parade here, as well as the name of the band, My Chemical Romance. So yeah, so when I saw that there existed a cardigan that was MCR, then yes, absolutely. I was all about needing to make sure I get that. So that is actually one of the few things that I bought at regular price. Occasionally, I will buy some things regular price, but most of the stuff that I got, I waited until it was on sale. So, Crystal says plastic? Question mark. Yeah, very highly possible because there was a lot of plastic being sold in Hot Topic, especially during the time that I had worked there. And one of the other things that we were often encouraged to do is something called average transaction size or units per transaction. So that's ATS and UPT. And what that meant is that whenever we were trying to sell things to people, we wanted to upsell them. So, hey, that's a really cute skirt. Do you need some tights with that? Hey, those are really cute shoes. Do you need some socks with that? Hey, and so you were always trying to come up with ways to upsell them so that not only the total of the sale was bigger, but also so that the number of items that you were selling was a big deal, which is part of the reason why pins and little nail polish and all those little things were always at the cash wrap. A, so that they wouldn't get stolen quite so often, and B, also so that you could have those as an add-on sale. And when someone's waiting in line, they'll grab it and say, oh, hey, I kind of want that pin. So that leads me to another thing that I 100% hate. Any of you that worked retail with me, Crystal is one of those people. I hate shoplifters. And so there's something called shrinkage. And so what that is that's the amount of stuff that you lost. And sometimes things get damaged. Sometimes it's unavoidable. It fell off the truck and suddenly there are things that you can't sell. And so there were plenty of those, but there were also people who would try to steal your stuff. And it was really kind of annoying. And of course, at Hot Topic in specific, we had a lot of clothes, and so we had a lot of ink tags. And so what a lot of people didn't realize, they just thought, oh, this is just some magnetic piece of plastic. What they didn't realize, if they shoplifted it and then took it home and tried to bust it open, that it would get purple ink all over everything, and it was just absolutely horrible. And we had moments in the store when we would accidentally break one, and yeah, you would just be covered in this gross purple that would not wash off for the longest time. And so I definitely couldn't stand to hear when the buzzer would go off, not only at Hot Topic, but also at the record store. It was rather annoying as well. And so I just developed this genuine dislike of shoplifting. And if you're too broke, I get that, but at the same time, there are those of us that are trying to make a living selling the stuff. So I don't know. Think what you will. Maybe I'm picking sides here, and maybe you guys are going to be on the opposite side of me. But it always just bothered me that but part of it too, um, things are getting more expensive. So I get why you would be frustrated at such a thing. So with that in mind, I did want to talk a little bit about when I first started at Hot Topic. It was March of 2008, and I was there until May of 2012. And when I first started, the clearance sales were fantastic. Like you'd get a t-shirt for $5 on clearance sale, and it was amazing. And then plus, for a while, I was able to not only get it at $5, but I was getting an employee discount, which was, I forget, 20, maybe 30. I don't remember the exact difference. But we had plenty of things that we would buy when they went on clearance, and it was a great way for me to get. I believe my t-shirt collection is well up over 300 uh, t-shirts that I have, and not all of them came from Hot Topic, but quite a few of them did. And also my kids were very lucky because they were right around, let me count that up, they were right around late elementary into high school age was the amount of time when I was working at Hot Topic. So those kids were set. Like my son had all of the Ozzy, Nine Inch Nails, and Rob Zombie t-shirts you could ever imagine. My daughter had all the cartoon shirts. We actually had it at a point where she could wear a Powerpuff Girl shirt every day of the week. She had 7 of them for a while. So, and Crystal says, yes, you can't chase them, unfortunately. So a lot of depending on the rules of the policies of your store, some stores can't chase them outside of the building that you're in or outside of the premises that you're on. And so some companies have that, some don't. Some have an entire dedicated group of people that are loss prevention, and they will chase them down. And so it depends. So Mark, hey, it's good to see you back for a bit. Hey, cousin Mark, good to see you here. And so yeah, the clearance and markdowns originally were really, really good. And then over time, the clearance items got less and less. The policy for how much we were able to get as far as an employee discount changed as well. Retail has just been an ever-changing thing. And so, due to that, and of course, inflation and all of the things that are crazy about what our financial world is kind of a mess. And so we won't get too far into that because we are still wanting to keep chit-chatting about Hot Topic itself. Now, one of my things that I was very torn about was the mystery shopper. If you ever worked retail, sometimes people would be hired to come in and shop your store. They would plan on buying something anyway, but they would then report to your corporation how you did, how they were treated, how they were greeted, if they were upsold, all of these things, and you would get graded on it. So I don't really like so much the grading part. The training part was kind of like, it was maybe my chance to shine, but it was always frustrating if you had a mystery shopper that did not know what they were looking for. So that was kind of a hot mess. One of my other favorite things that I love to do was inventory. So I liked keeping track of stuff. That's kind of, the nerd in me, knowing that I wanted to know how many of a size large of that Johnny Cash shirt was in stock, and I would know the answer. And I know that was a dorky thing to know, but it was just some way, it was a way that I like to keep track of everything. And then I felt like I could be more helpful. So there is something in my general demeanor, my personality that works well in trying to serve people in retail, but then I also get really mad if people try to shoplift. So I get grumpy about that. And of course, we've all in retail dealt with our fair share of Karens. And so not the good kind like my friend Karen, but the bad kind that want to speak to the manager. And so being the manager when that happened was always fun too. So, back to Hot Topic itself in specific. First of all, what a lot of people don't realize is it started back in 1989, and it was started in Montclair, California, the very first store. Now, the logo, and I'm not sure if I've got it to where I can share. I don't think I'm going to be able to. So, but the logo, and I will actually post pictures of the logo after the live stream is done. The logo was very 80s, very like bright neon green with a little zigzag going through it, and it was basically supposed to be um, a less childish version of Claire's because they sold earrings and scarves and belts and bracelets, but they didn't sell clothing when they first got started. Well, it only took them about 4 years to decide that, hey, we want to make things just a little grittier. And so this particular logo is the one that next appeared. And so once this logo had appeared, that is the Hot Topic that so many people know so well because, like I said, it's kind of dark and a lot of the jokes that you would see on today, even on TikTok, or why are the lights turned out? Who turned off the lights? And now when you go to Hot Topic, it's very bright, and they're like, wait, who turned on the lights? So things have definitely changed quite a bit from this version of Hot Topic to that version. In fact, speaking of Karens that would get upset, there are some very famous angry mom posts about Hot Topic in specific, and I can't remember if it's quite how she mentioned it, but she basically called the people that work there satanic clowns, and I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? So, and her daughter only went in to get like something SpongeBob related, which is funny because there's a bit of a juxtaposition. People always are like, yeah, Hot Topic, it's metal and it's punk, but for quite some time they were also selling Care Bears and SpongeBob and all, Hello Kitty has been with them for quite some time, and a lot of people don't realize that even in this time period Hello Kitty things were indeed being sold. So there you go. And so, oh yes, ICP was a very big one. And then Torrid. And so Torrid is a fun story because Torrid was actually launched in 2001 from Hot Topic, based on Hot Topic. So the really cool thing as to why kind of these edgier things happen, what I'm giving credit for, is a certain CEO who actually joined as part of the corporate suite, but then moved her way up to CEO, and that would be Betsy McLaughlin. So what's really cool is like I'm actually friends with her on Facebook. That is how cool she is. Like she was always so kind and so helpful and reachable which is very rare for a CEO. And but she worked her way up through the company. And so I think she was part of that. So she started out when there were only 15 total stores, and right now, as of April 2020, there are currently 675 locations. And she was there for from 93 all the way up until 2011. And so I got to have her as my CEO while I was working there, which was a lot of fun. And so Ernie mentions, what about the ultimate mall throwback, Spencer's? Yes, I have that on my list, and we will talk a little bit about Spencer's and its own interesting way of being. So, like I said, Betsy, I think, was a big part of moving things forward and having things be a little bit more edgy, but still having, a little bit of lightheartedness. And so, like Crystal said, Torrid, which was the plus size clothing version of Hot Topic, really. And so they were more focused on fashion. They were more focused on making sure that girls of all sizes had a chance to look as cool as they wanted to look, had a chance to look as rock and roll as they wanted to look. And so, like I said, Betsy, I always give her a lot of credit. She's always been a bit of a hero to me. She's quite the leader. And so these days, after she left Hot Topic, she's been, on board of directors, all kinds of things like that, diversifying investments and such. But I just always thought that that time period that I got to work at Hot Topic, I felt pretty lucky about it. So we got to see some of the cuter things, and we also got to see some of the grittier things. And so as far as what the atmosphere, and so that's everything as far as like kind of just talking through the history a little bit. And then Mark says Worlds of Fun did back in the late 80s as well with the SKUs. Yes, absolutely. So you'd flip it over and it'd be all these numbers that you had to type in to make sure that your inventory got correctly put in. And so the next thing I want to talk about with Hot Topic is the atmosphere and the promotions. And so there was a change from 2008 to 2012 while I was working there. We went from being a little grittier, and then hang on, I do have one other thing. I do still surprisingly have my lanyard from when the switch happened. So there's the switch to where it looks like it was, stenciled onto the wall, the hall, whatever. A lot of people think that it's a more boring version. So, but to each their own. But it was definitely a branding change that happened during the time that I was there. So it started like this and ended up like that. And one of the things that we still wanted to keep, even when we were changing branding and all of that kind of stuff, was music, because for a long time the tagline for us, and it even said it on our name tags, which I couldn't find. I don't know how I'm missing it. I'm sure I'll find it and take a picture and post it as well. But the it said everything about the music. So we had a section of CDs and we had a section of vinyl and those kinds of things. And so we sold some music, but not as much as, say, a record store. And they often had music everywhere you would look. We would have vinyl, and of course, one of the big things about Hot Topic was the T-shirt wall, and the big part of the T-shirt wall for a very long time was the rock wall. We called it the rock wall. It wasn't a rock wall like what you climb, but it is the rock and roll wall that has all of the music T-shirts, which was one of our biggest sellers. And the thing, a lot of people, most people would come in for a Misfits shirt. We'd always have a Misfits or Ramones shirt, some of those old classic ones, but then we'd have newer groups. And at the time, one of the newer groups was My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco, Paramore. So all of those emo and scene type bands, they always had their T-shirts were always featured, and we always had so many of them. And so the other thing with the T-shirts is we had boy fit and girl fit, and I was not afraid to wear any version, because the girl fit came in at the waist and went back out again. And for some people, so for me, of course, I'm like an extra large girl fit, but I could fit like a small or a medium in men's. So if that gives you any idea. And there were also some guys that were like, I don't care if it's a girl fit, that is the logo that I want to have on my chest, so I'm going to buy a girl fit shirt. And some people were completely unafraid to do that, which I thought was great. Ernie said, I managed mall retail stores for Endicott Johnson Shoes in Columbia, Paducah, Kentucky, Maroon, Illinois. Mattoon, Illinois. So, plus I worked at Corn Dog on a Stick on my off days. That's some classic mall stuff right there. I didn't even realize. I just figured you were, insurance all the way. But that is great. I mean, I'm telling you, once you kind of get into the mall culture, it's hard to get out because I will give you that side note of I did spend 8 years working in a record store, and we will probably have a show dedicated to that at some point in the future. And so we'll talk about mall stuff too. And of course, one of the big things that we had, and like I said, it wasn't always metal, it wasn't always rock. We sold Johnny Cash t-shirts fantastically well. And then whenever we have things like, I don't know, I feel like maybe we even had a Shooter Jennings, Waylon Jennings, some other ones like that, some of the classics and some of the newer stuff, and we'd sell it. Zac Brown Band, I'm pretty sure we had his t-shirts as well. And so it just kind of depended on what the buyers for Hot Topic thought was going to work. So one of the big things that we sold the heck out of was Trip. Trip Inc. was the name of the band. And so people always know Trip pants. People call them bondage pants because they always had like the little straps and chains and all the things hanging off of them. And they were very big and very baggy. Well, Trip also did skinny jeans too, but they'd have them with like all the extra little things hanging off them. So one of the big things that I took on to the second I got started in 2008, I started buying plaid skirts. And I kind of went bonkers on it because it ended up being a really good look for me. If any of you have ever seen Bender, you'll see that that actually went into Bender as well. And I want maybe you all should count along with me how many skirts I am about to hold up for you. So Crystal said I worked the 9 hours a day with 2 jobs. That was way too much time working in the mall. Yeah, I think she was at the cookie place as well as the record place. It was a lot. And Ernie said the music was great there. I agree. I always loved being able to listen to music. And we actually had a music system that would update, and you could pick albums to listen to. So you could listen to Ramones, an entire album of Ramones. You could listen to something new like MCR at the time. And so there was always something interesting and new and something updated, and some of the stuff I wasn't as excited to listen to, like screamo kind of stuff. I like things with a melody, but yeah, it would always be playing in the sort, and it was always something interesting. So I'm about to start here the parade of skirts, and it looks like we're starting with the smallest one, and I have them pretty much in any color, and the thing is certain details on the skirts would come up a little bit different. So of course, here's my tiny blue. Most of you think that that might be, uh, tiny enough to be a belt. So, but there you go. And so there's the blue one. That was probably the third or fourth one. This was the very first one I ever bought. So, of course, I'm not getting rid of it. Look at the detail on those pockets. I always loved these pockets and the way that they moved. And, of course, they had a spot for me to put chains. And, of course, I didn't always put the chains on there. In fact, I've just removed the chains from these, but I had that one, and that one is probably my favorite. And of course, Ernie says Bender, fun, fun, fun. I couldn't agree more. And sometimes we would do the basic black, so I had a couple of basic black ones, but they still had some cool details, some lace at the bottom. Of course, pleats. Pleats always just made the silhouette look really good. And so this one, of course, we have as well. So, and as you can see, we've got little, eyelets and little kind of things to add more stuff to. And then, of course, like I said, I had them in many different colors. What's interesting, a lot of people, when they see me wear this color, they think Clueless. They think Sharon Clueless. And so definitely one of the ones that I have worn fairly recently. This one is one of the ones I got later, so this actually fits me. As you know, as we get older, we get a little bit bigger, don't we? And so some of these don't fit right now, and some of these do fit right now. So this one, of course, has cool little skulls all on it, and then it also has a little bit of lace there at the bottom as well. So Mark said, been in security companies where we actually got to chase them down when they shoplifted. So yes, it is not the same with every company, but yes. And of course, Crystal says, as if. So very good share imitation there. Now, sometimes we would do, the interesting thing is when things started to change with Hot Topic was how much Disney we would get. And so this is actually Book of Life. And so it's a really cool little skirt. I originally got it for my daughter Jillian so she could wear it to dress events. And then of course she's like, no, I'm not interested in that. She's way more goth than I ever was at this point. And so I got to keep the skirt. Sometimes it's not a hand me down, it's a hand me up, it's a hand me over, it's all of that. So, but I will say, for a while when I started working at Hot Topic, I was only a part timer. And so I went to full time, that which I was very grateful for. But while I was a part timer, at the same time, directly across the sidewalk on Branson Landing was a Disney store, and they were also hiring. So I had a part time job at Hot Topic. I would get done, and I would go over and work my part time job at Disney. And people were like, that's definitely a dichotomy. And then over time, people ended up uh, we ended up at Hot Topic having so much Disney stuff anyway. So that only lasted about 6 months, and then I was able to go into full time. And mom, of course, she worked retail. Mom, Norma June says, I worked at Mattingly's in Odessa for, I think that says 6 years during the 80s. And so, yes, I remember that. I remember once I was kind of in school, mom had an opportunity to work, and she said, and hang on. Oh, there, Kat, how are you? It's good to see you. Thanks for chiming in as well. So mom said, way before technologies, the Fred Flintstone days, Hot Topic was very interesting just walking into the store. So yes, it was. So thank you, mom, for taking your chances and walking in to say hello to me when I was working at Hot Topic. So Kat says, some of my best memories with kids was taking them to spend their own money and shopping for myself at the same time. Clothing was my favorite. So yes, over time, while we did have some music, clothing ended up being the main part of what we did. And so for some reason, I tended to go towards red plaid skirts, maybe because there were so many of them. And of course, you can see I've got some chain details and some eyelet details and a little bit of rivet as well. The interesting thing is I don't have a spike belt. My daughter has one of the spike belts. Of course, that's in her wardrobe. But speaking of belts, of course, I do have a few of those to show off. We of course have the classic white, and it's just the grommets, the eyelets, and then of course you have different colors of the pyramid belts is what they call us, because these were like tiny little pyramids. So yeah, Ernie remembers my mom working there. Of course, a lot of people remember my mom working there in Mattingly's. And so and then of course more pyramid belts. Of course, I have one in black and silver, and so quite a few of those items. Now, I didn't always just do the kilts. Sometimes I would do another crazy skirt like this giant purple fluffy thing. Now, Crystal, did this originally belong to you and it came to me? I don't remember. Whenever you're best friends and you start sharing stuff, we don't always remember, but this was a very floofy poofy shirt or skirt. One of the other non-tartan ones that I did was in a very hot pink, and of course it still had all the same details. And as you can see, it still had the Trip logo. Now, sometimes it was the Trip logo and sometimes it was the Hot Topic logo, and it just kind of depended on the skirt and the branding. And this is actually, no, actually I take it back. This was the second skirt that I ever bought. And this is actually kind of broken. I've kind of stitched it back shut. So Crystal, thank you for letting me have that purple skirt. If you ever want to try it on again, you are welcome to do that. And this one actually has the chain. These are normally chains, but this one is fabric. So, and always looked really super cool. You'd add some leggings and really have a good time with it. And some of them had stretch and some of them didn't. Like this one I could still stretch on me, and again you can kind of see the details. I've got like the little chain links and all of that. That's right, Crystal says that it was her Madonna 80s Halloween costume. And so yes, and we did I definitely have reclaimed it and put it in the magic room. So, of course, into each life, a little bit of checkerboard must fall whenever I'm feeling my ska mood. And as you can see, that one is actually a Hot Topic logoed version. So one of my other favorites, I do love the color green, and especially what was interesting about what Hot Topic would do is around the holidays, Halloween obviously being a really big holiday for Hot Topic, because of course we sold costumes, but we also sold a lot of this kind of stuff that some people would even use as costumes, literally like Crystal is. So that was her Madonna costume from Halloween. And so, of course, when St. Patrick's Day came around, we sold a ton of green. We'd always have green in the window. I loved merchandising, like I said before, into the window. And so, of course, I had to have a little bit of green plaid, and then I think the rest of my stuff is like green and blue plaid. And as you can see, each one had a slightly different set, and I have already forgotten to count how many of these. Has anybody been counting my skirts? At some point I will post what the final number is. So yes, a little bit more blue. This one actually Crystal bought for me for Christmas birthday. So thank you, Crystal. You know exactly what I like and what to buy for me. And then one of the other larger ones that also fits, also in a lovely red plaid. another one that still fits, which I kind of think is cool, but you have to be careful. Like when you've got stuff that could really stab you, you have to be careful. It might break a hole into your t-shirt that you're wearing with it. So there was a lot of danger in fashion at the time as well. And then of course the final one, which looks very kilt-like with the little buckles and everything. So now you can kind of see the details. That's my stack of things that came specifically from Hot Topic. I still have a few other skirts, yeah, that are tartan. I think I have a disease, a problem, something. But yes, so much of that. Now, one of the other things with merchandising that I found it interesting that they did in the 4 years that I was working for, like I said, there was everything about the music. Now, over time, they did something called Hot Cash, which is basically like Kohl's Cash. You buy something, they give you the cash. There's a date on it. You come back and you spend the cash, and it's basically just a big discount coupon. So we had something like that. We also had a loyalty program for a while that was called HT Plus One, and it would say on the bottom, "Your friend with benefits." So Hot Topic in merchandising was not afraid to to kind of dance on that line just a little bit. The biggest one was our whenever we were selling jeans, we sold Hot Topic branded jeans, and the tagline was "Get in our pants." Yes, it really was. You can look it up anywhere. You can see all of them. And we had three different types of skinny jeans because that time period was very emo, scene kid stuff. And I will tell you, I absolutely love every single one of those scene kids and those emo kids. I'm friends with some of them on Facebook. I hope they'll get a chance to see all this and they'll feel nostalgic as well. It was crazy, all of the kids, and I just kind of felt, I was mama bird. I would definitely took them all in and would be, kind and parenting to them as best I could. And so we had three different styles: rude style, love stick six style, which was the girl style, and stingers. Stingers were the skinniest, slimmest, lowest cut of all of the skinny jeans. And so I didn't really fit into those. I usually fit into the lovesick pretty well. So Kay, thank you for being here. She said my kids had the Hot Cash and the loyalty program. So yes, I had both of those as well. And I ended up getting the credit card. I don't know if it's even still active. So one of the biggest things that I really loved and only lasted for about 3 of the 4 years that I was there was a side venture that Hot Topic did, and maybe you guys know about this and maybe you don't. It was called shockhound.com. It is since defunct, and the whole idea behind it was to create a community around music. Now you could still buy stuff, like you could go to Shockhound and buy an obscure AC/DC or MC5 shirt or something like that. They were kind of more expensive, but because they were a bit more one-off or a bit more smaller, they weren't made as many of them. And so Shockhound also would cover new releases, and it would cover uh, all kinds of news, music news. And so the cool thing about that is Shockhound also would post new videos. So it was almost like it was a combination of, it was a little bit of YouTube because they'd post videos on it. It was a little bit of Spotify before Spotify really became what it is now, because you could listen to music on there and you could buy that music once you were done listening to it. And a social media. So it was a little MySpacey, a little Facebooky, but it was all just kind of a crazy one. So Ernie says, good job, y'all. Dinner's calling, rock on. Thank you, Ernie, for all of your input. I appreciate it. And Kat agrees. Kat said mine too. So her kids had the Hot Cash and loyalty program as well. And so, but Shockhound was kind of ahead of its time and really amazing. And so if you do a little bit of digging in the internet, you can't find everything about it, but it was really fun. You could make your own, very much how you could make your own profile, and people could come and visit you and see what you were up to, see what your favorite songs were, what you did like, what you didn't like. And unfortunately, it just kind of went away. And so, and you could also buy MP3s that way, download them to your computer. Now, one of my favorite things about Shockhound was that you had access to something called Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday was two guys, one of which is Dan Epstein, who I'm also friends with on Facebook, which is really exciting because he's another hero of mine. He's a fantastic journalist, amazing music journalist. If you find him, he is on Substack, you think? Substack is the name of it. So I will try to get a link together to promote him as well because he's fantastic. And so I feel bad because I can't remember the name of the other guy who was on it, but they would announce all of the different CDs that were coming out, all the different new music releases that were coming out on Tuesday, because any of you that worked in either at Hot Topic or at the record store knew that Tuesday was the big release day. And so they would cover that by putting out a little video. And I absolutely loved it because at the very end of every one, Dan Epstein would yell, "Rock and roll!" And it was just the coolest little thing, and big fan. So, and as you can see, with all of the tons of outfits and things, accessories still remained very big on what Hot Topic would sell. We always had the never out section. And so there were things like belts and bracelets and all of those things that you could always find at Hot Topic. And they don't really have that as much anymore, except online. They do have the never out program still, but it's more online and you kind of have to order it that way. So Crystal mentioned shoes and boots. Hang on, let me get my big ones. Where are they at? There they are. So this right here, check that platform, check those details. Definitely was one of the favorite pairs that I ever got. Crystal had a similar, at least a couple similar sets. But the ones that I normally wore when I was in Bender, I did wear these once in a while with Bender. But my normal ones were just the legit combat boots. So these are Volatile. This was their style. I think those ones over there were Demonia, but these were called Volatile boots. And so there's still a little bit of buckle, but they were that lower and great tread so that if there was spilled beer, I would not trip and kill myself. So boots were a big thing as well. And so, of course, at the front counter, what I'd mentioned before, we had candies, we had drinks, we had pins all over the place. And the thing is you couldn't find Pocky anywhere. And Pocky is like a Japanese candy type treat, like just a little stick with some sugar on it. And then you also couldn't find Ramune, which was the little glass bottle where you would push the little marbly thing in and it would fizz up and you'd have to drink it. So, and Kay said, those clothes were meant to last. We have one t-shirt that is currently with its fourth owner. Agree completely. I have shirts from Hot Topic that have really stood the test of time. And as you can see, all of those skirts are still rocking it out. So amen. So one of the things that, as you know, I'm a big fan of organization. And so I love doing all the merchandising, and we had mannequins, and we would do a head to toe mannequin with their full outfit. And we put a shirt and a skirt and or pants. And then we would put a jacket and the necklace and the bracelet and all the additional things. And sometimes people would say, I want that whole outfit. And that's when we knew that we had won, because it was really cool to be able to do that. Now, something else that went against my organization is later, when they started doing clearance sales, they wanted it to be disorganized. I disagree completely. I am not a fan. And they called it hot mess clearance. And I kind of hated it because you were supposed to lay out a table and then just dump all of your clearance shirts on the table for people to rummage through like a rummage sale. And some people, there are studies out there that say that that helps people stay in your store longer and shop longer, but I disagree. If I am in that clearance and I want to see something that I like, I want to see what's on the shirts. I don't want to have to dive and dig. But again, that's probably where I'm different. That's probably where we split apart. Crystal called Pocky chocolate covered breadstick. Yeah, I'd say that's a perfect way to announce it. Now, I also had mentioned that we had tie-ins, and we had so many movie tie-ins. And one of the big ones that I never participated in, but I thought sold a lot, was Twilight. All of you that are fans of Twilight, love you, do your thing. I was never a fan, but boy, I was not afraid to sell those shirts as often as possible. And then there were also shows like True Blood. Now with True Blood, what was interesting is we had at the front counter where we'd had the candy and the drinks, they had a blood packet, and it looks like type A blood or whatever, and you can open it and drink it, and it's just like a fruit punch or whatever, but they've changed it so where it looks the shade and consistency of blood. Really gross, kind of scary. That was probably part of what was freaking people out about coming into Hot Topic. And of course, so much Marvel, DC games, Harry Potter, Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh yeah, so much Tim Burton, just a ridiculous amount. And of course, some WWE, some Bullet Club, some Star Wars. So we had everything you could think of, and of course, tons of cartoons: SpongeBob, Rugrats, all the Cartoon Network, anime, My Little Pony, Invader Zim. Hang on, let me get that one out. Yes, I'm with Crystal. Vampires don't sparkle. I agree with you. We are team non-sparkly vampires. Sorry to those of you who love Edward. So, of course, like I said, Invader Zim. And what do you want? You want just a giant Invader Zim, right? With like frighteningly large head. Of course, this is Gur, his dog, his animal, his pet, his robot, whatever it was. But yes, so all of the Invader Zim stuff featuring Gur very heavily. And of course, don't you want a now that my poor backpack is broken, I need to fix the zipper. But this was actually a backpack of Gur, and you could fit, I don't know, maybe $5 bills into whatever's here because it's also stuff. So it was really more about wearing Gur on your back than it was about actually using it as a purse. Crystal's with the Anne Rice style of vampire. So Interview with the Vampire style. Yes, I think I'm with you there. Clive said, read The Host in one day, never finished Twilight, though. I couldn't get past 2 pages in Twilight. I tried and failed. I just couldn't get connected to it. I was kind of annoyed by it. So even though Ernie is gone, he did mention Spencer's. And one of the big things when people would walk in, I would have to be like, we're not Spencer's. Spencer's has an entire section in the back of naughty things. And if that's what you want, go ahead. People always thought that that was what Hot Topic had in it. We did not have naughty things, like at all. But the thing is people would see the piercings. And so for a long time, what's funny about me, I don't have any tattoos. I only have 2 simple piercings in one in each ear. I've never really dyed my hair, but I knew more about how to take care of your tattoo, how to gauge your piercings up to larger and larger, and we had pretty sizable ones for people who wanted to gauge their ears, and how to and making sure that you had hair lightener as well as color. So I could help people with it. I just never did it myself. So Kat said best HP I had to go or HT. I had to go to HT actually to get Ravenclaw back in the day. Yep. So and that's the thing, is like you would find those little things that you couldn't find anywhere else. So tons of other, and the other thing is tons of memes. And so between Hello Kitty, Fred, does anybody remember Fred? Maybe they don't want to. We'd celebrate Pride Month. We had Charlie Sheen shirts whenever he was winning, right? And then of course Charlie the Unicorn, Charlie. And so that was a big one. Nyan Cat, Domo, and of course South Park. I want to close right now. We've run out of time, and of course I had a few other things that I could have gotten to, but it doesn't look like I'm getting to them, and maybe I'll write a little mini essay about them. But I have to mention South Park. A funny thing happened in November of 2008. They put out an episode where they had some goth kids who they thought were vampires, and they decided that in order to get rid of the vampires, they had to burn Hot Topic to the ground, which they did it in the show. And oh yes, Kat remembers Charlie Sheen and his tiger blood. You're absolutely right. And of course, we had a tiger blood shirt. Yes, we did. And so the next morning, one of our regional managers was really upset and was like, well, we're going to pull all of South Park's. And the CEO then piped in. That would be Betsy. And one of the earliest things that she did was she wrote, or right after it happened, she wrote an email and said, I watched it. I laughed my ass off. I pissed myself laughing. So make sure that you have gone to the bathroom before you watch this if you haven't watched this. Oh no, we're going to use this as a parlay, and we are going to sell the crap out of South Park merchandise because we have a sense of humor, and we can handle being made fun of and understanding all the silliness and all the things. And so with that, I want to close with I'm also going to try to post something that's a song called Hot Topic is Not Punk Rock, one of Steven's favorite songs by a guy named MC Lars that tells everything that you ever wanted to know about making fun of Hot Topic. So like I said, I'm kind of running out of time. I don't want these to go past 45 minutes, and this one kind of has. But I at least need to announce, what are we going to do next week? What are we going to talk about next week? So how about soda? You call it soda, you call it pop, you call it cola, you call it Coke. All of those fizzy, non-alcoholic, possibly caffeinated beverages, we're going to go back talking to beverages. So I know we talked about coffee and tea a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to dedicate an entire episode just to soda because I have a ridiculous amount in my bottle collection. I'm a big fan, even though I haven't had a drink of actual like sugary soda in probably over a month. Like since Christmas was the last time I had a legitimate Pepsi. So, but yes, we will talk about what are your favorites? What do you love? What do you hate? What are you just completely not able to stand at all? And so be thinking about those. I am going to spend probably the next day or two getting all the little last minute things that I said I would post. I'll try to find my name tag from Hot Topic. I'll try to make sure that I post all of the songs and things that were applying to Hot Topic. So, and any of you that are watching this after it's done being live, I welcome you to chime in as well. Feel free to let us know, whatever it is that you want to talk about Hot Topic, and I welcome it greatly. So, to all of my Hot Topic coworkers, thank you so much for making an amazing 4 years of my life and being my friends even to this very day. Those of you that shopped Hot Topic, thank you for being fantastic customers and also being my friends up until this very day. So thanks again, guys, and I will try and get everything posted and get everything caught up, and we'll see you next week for Soda Pop. Thank you, guys. It was awesome.